And here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, what's going on, my friends? It's now 3 o'clock chat here. We start in the NFL. Bad news for the Browns. Deshaun Watson done for the year. He is being shut down and will get surgery on his throwing shoulder. Dorian Thompson-Robinson will start Sunday against the Steelers. New batch of college football playoff rankings dropped last night. Georgia is now number 1 with back-to-back wins over Mizzou and Ole Miss. Michigan is number 2, Ohio State 3, Florida State number 4, Washington and Oregon remain the first 2 out. The Huskies travel to Corvallis Saturday, 4:30 kick. The Beavs right now a 2.5-point favorite. Oregon will meet ASU in Tempe. 1 o'clock kick. The Ducks are favored by 22. The Trailblazers play the second of a back-to-back tonight. The Cavaliers are in town. Tip-off promoted at 7. I'll have game day coming up at 4:30 here on 620 Rip City Radio. The Blazers fell last night in Utah, 115-99 after connecting on just 15 of 45 from the field in the second half. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming at you right now.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
I opened up the front door and walked in,
Yeah.
I thought, wow.
I immediately thought Michael Shacker, and then I was like, wait, he's not in the building today. So there you go. Don't microwave fish in the office place. If you do, it's really inappropriate, and then we all have to deal with it, and it's just wrong, all right?
I hope they're listening out there, but I don't think they are.
It doesn't matter. That person, whoever did it, they're too smug to even consider other people around them. Because most brains would be like, wait a second, if I put this in the microwave, bad things are going to happen, man.
Yeah.
I mean, bad things. All right, one other quick thing I want to get to before we get on to the college football playoff rankings, which dropped last night. All day yesterday for 2 hours on air. And then 45 minutes after the game, I couldn't talk about the thing I cared about the most because of the Blazers. That Denver Bronco experience on Monday Night Football where they beat the Bills 24-22 on a last-second field goal, that was the biggest win by the franchise in 8 years. The Denver Broncos went from the laughingstock to now a legitimate playoff contender in the AFC. They've won 3 straight, back-to-back wins over the Chiefs and the Bills, which are legitimate, and the defense, which was the absolute worst after giving up 70 to Miami over the last 4 weeks, essentially the best in football. I don't know how they did it. I don't know what the magic formula is, but once again, it's a reminder that when you have a new coach and a new system and a lot of new pieces, you have to be patient because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and now the Broncos are starting to get a feel for what type of team they are, and now we can look squarely back at last year and realize that Nathaniel Hackett was dumb, and that was a very bad situation for Russ because now Russell Wilson, still top 5 in quarterback rating, one of the best touchdown to interception ratios, 18 TDs, 4 picks. He's making big plays. He's not turning it over, and the Broncos are now winning the game.
Chad, Russell Wilson is in the top 5 in virtually every quarterback category that you can be ranked in.
Yeah, all the key ones.
Yeah.
So props to him, props to Sean Payton, and all I can say is, as a fan, this is fun. Like, I like watching a team that looks awful, but they make a couple of changes, get some younger guys in, and continue to grind. And look at where you're at now. The NFL can change overnight. It's a beautiful thing. And now they're coming home. Sunday Night Football. Vikings will be in town. They have a chance to get to 500. That is wild.
It's so funny for me because like 3 weeks ago, I'm done. I'm done.
That's
it.
Yeah, I was so
finished
bitter
with these guys.
And I know that most people listening don't, but I do like Russ. Like, I really like him.
Yeah, we both do.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I wanted him to do well, and I was happy when he came over to Denver because I like him. I like watching him play. And so to see him have a bounce-back year after last year's awful season, the worst of his career by far, it's really been a lot of fun. And it's weird, but I guess coaches, Sean Payton knows what he's doing. Really big surprise there. Unlike Hackett, he's no dum-dum.
No, this is what you're hiring for, you know.
Yes. And I love this, too, in sports because people were hitting me up on Monday night. Oh, the Broncos are so lucky. And if it wasn't for the penalties, they wouldn't have won the game. I don't give a flying rip. They won the game, scoreboard. The Bills got penalties called on them on the final drive because that's what they do. They are not disciplined.
Yeah.
It was clearly PI, and they clearly had 12 men on the field. Did the Broncos benefit from that? Yes. But I don't care. They won. Scoreboard. 3 in a row. And a win on Monday night in Buffalo, which was the first Monday night win they've had in 7 tries. So they've changed a lot of narratives. They broke a 16-game losing streak to Kansas City. They broke the Monday night streak to get over on Buffalo. So I'm feeling good. I like it. I'm okay with that. Give it 3 weeks and I'll be bitter again. But right now I feel great.
Right. Yeah, it had something to do with I think the resurgence had something to do with the teams they played. Because even the Kansas City win, Kansas City is not as good on offense as they have been in previous years. So
it's still Patrick Mahomes. It's Patrick Mahomes.
But you still have to be
The Chiefs are still
wary.
the best team in the AFC.
So many of these things have a lot to do with who you're playing.
They just beat 2 of the best teams in the AFC. Kansas City. They lost 16 straight to Kansas City. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes.
I'm not buying that Buffalo is one of the best teams in the AFC.
No, but winning
not
there.
Now.
You know how many times they've lost at home this year? Once. And that was Monday night. Denver was the first team to do it. They're a different team at home, and Denver went in there and got the job done. So, and you never complain about a win over Kansas City. They're the best team in the AFC. You and I both agree that Kansas City's going to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah. They beat them. You beat the teams in front of you. Kansas City and Buffalo is a lot different than Green Bay. And so, yeah, do I care? No, they beat Patrick Mahomes. They went into Buffalo and beat them. No one else had done that. They had dominated opponents at home this year. Look at what they did to Miami. Look at what they did to the Raiders. They dominated teams at home. Man, Denver beat them. So I'm happy about it. It's just amazing how quickly they can change in the NFL. And you're trying to knock just slightly take shots at the Broncos for the teams they beat. They beat Patrick Mahomes. Case closed. They had lost 16 straight. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable, and they finally beat him. Oh, I know he was sick. Oh, I wasn't feeling right. He was playing. If you don't feel well and you're not going to play well, don't play. Sit out. He didn't. He played, and the Broncos got over on him. That's on him.
Chad, if you're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's the case. All right, college football playoff rankings came out last night.
Yeah.
I predicted with Burkhardt the exact order in which it came. No surprise that Georgia's now number one after back-to-back wins over Missouri and then Ole Miss. And against Ole Miss, they looked like the Georgia that we know. Dominant. They look really good. So it's amazing how they've kind of flipped a switch and now have gone to a different level. Michigan moves into the number 2 slot off the win over Penn State on the road without Jim Harbaugh. That was impressive to me because they ran the ball 32 straight times and won the game on the road against a good defensive team. They're good, and they've dominated their competition this year. Ohio State, less impressive. They're now number 3. And here's where it gets tricky. Florida State is number 4, and Washington is still sitting there at number 5. It's why I say you cannot trust the committee, and this is the problem of the Pac-12. It doesn't matter what they've done this year. People had a full decade to watch the clown show, which is Larry Scott, and that conference operate. And so no one respects it, even with the play this year. Right now, Godfather, this is a problem for the Pac-12. Right now, record against current top 25 teams. Washington, 3-0. Ohio State, 2-0. Georgia, 2-0. Michigan and Florida State, 1-0. Washington is undefeated, and their resume is better than Florida State. Why the F are they sitting there at number 5 and not at number 4?
Because obviously the committee thinks Florida State's better than Washington.
Yes. So if they believe that, that tells you what they think about the Pac-12 when Washington is undefeated and has a better resume. And they've got a Heisman potential quarterback in Michael Penix.
And the Pac-12 has all these other teams in the top 25.
Yes. So going back to our discussion from Monday, if the committee has to sit there and make a decision, if Michigan's undefeated and Florida State's undefeated and they're looking to fill 2 slots, Texas is still ranked ahead of Alabama. If they win out and Alabama wins out and they're both sitting there with conference championships with 1 loss, we know that Texas is in it. And then, as Joel Klatt suggested, the decision would come down between Alabama, 1 loss, with a victory over the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah.
And an SEC championship, or Oregon, if Oregon wins out. Who are they going to choose? The SEC and Alabama coming off a win over number 1, or Oregon coming out of the Pac-12? It's pretty obvious.
It is.
They're not going to take Oregon.
Agree.
So if you're a Duck fan, simply dominating your competition and winning out now is not enough. You need help from other teams to take out Texas. You need Georgia to win out and beat Alabama, because if all those teams win out, the Pac-12 is going to get punked. The only certainty I have with the Pac-12 is that if Washington remains unbeaten and wins the Pac-12 championship game, they're in.
They'll go, yeah.
Outside of that, you leave in the hands of the committee, and they're going to choose. They're not leaving the SEC out of the playoff under that circumstance and putting a Pac-12 team in.
Well, it's important to remember Ohio State plays Michigan, so the loser of that game going to drop out of the top 4. So that'll leave 1 spot for somebody to move in. You know, if Alabama, like you say, if Alabama wins out, the team that beat them is going to move into that spot.
It's Rip City Drive on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Godfather, there are people wondering if you're the one that used the microwave for fish.
No. I'm not a big fish eater, and if I were, I would have to say no to microwave fish. It doesn't even sound good.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I want fish that's fresh off the grill, not fresh out of the microwave.
Thank you. Yeah.
It stinks in here, man. I got to be honest with you. It's hideous right now inside of iHeart Portland. Some moron thought it was a good idea to take the microwave and put a bunch of fish in there and heat it up. And now we all got to deal with their lunch. Horrible. All right, here's the latest, and this is coming from John Wilner, Godfather, from the Mercury News. He's
Great
all
source.
over the Pac-12.
Yeah.
He says the defendants, well, let's just start from the top. The most anticipated showdown of the Pac-12 season gained significant clarity on Tuesday when Washington State and Oregon State were given legal control of the conference by a superior court judge. As such, the two schools left behind in the realignment game can determine the fate of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and assets. But, as he says, it's not over. It could drag on for weeks, if not months. And he went on to say the defendants announced immediately after the ruling that they would appeal to the Washington Supreme Court in Olympia, where UW hopes to receive a more favorable audience. Judge Libby's courtroom is 15 miles from Pullman. Olympia is an hour from Husky Stadium. But as Wilner said, if you're the plaintiffs in this situation, Oregon State and Washington State, this ruling puts you squarely in control of the situation, which is access to those resources that the conference would have with the other schools jumping ship to different conferences with the Big Ten and the Big 12.
Yeah, so I think whatever the plan is for Oregon State and Washington State, they can begin that journey toward whatever it is, and they know they've got enough money to keep the lights on for 2 more years. I have a feeling, Chad, getting this verdict reversed is going to be a bit of a problem because the way it was spelled out by the judge in this hearing, it looks like that's a tough appeal, and it may not even be heard. Like the Washington State Supreme Court has a right to, just like the U.S. Supreme Court, they don't hear all of the arguments. They'll turn it down if they don't think it's worth it.
Yes, and this is one of those situations where I could see a court, the Supreme Court, saying we don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Meaning they don't stand to gain much by listening to that and then punking 2 smaller schools.
Right, and they believe that the first verdict was fair and just, so we're going to just leave it alone.
Wilner went on to say that not all 10 outbound schools have taken the same approach to the lawsuit. According to a source, there are hardliners within the group that prevented the 2 sides from reaching a settlement through mediation. So that's not a big surprise. He said for all the focus of the revenue due to the conference in 23-24 and another $100 million or more in assets that await WSU and OSU starting next summer, the schools are equally concerned about the size and nature of the liabilities. He went on to say that perhaps the most significant result of Libby's ruling, assuming for a moment that it holds through the appeal process, is what it means for next year. It pushes the Pac-2 much closer to reality. The Cougars and Beavers are contemplating whether to operate as a 2-team conference for the 24-25 sports season and possibly the 25-26 season as well. It's permitted under NCAA rules, but the practicality is complicated and very costly. Atop the list of challenges, formulating schedules for their sports teams. In that regard, the Mountain West schools could provide a life raft if the price is right. So really, the advantage now is that with those resources, if they have to operate as a 2-team conference for 2 years, they're allowed to do that, and they've got the resources to be able to make that happen. The scheduling is where it gets tricky.
Yeah. That's the problem because so many football schools already have their schedules set for next year. Now they could drop a game and replace it. They could buy out of a certain game and replace it. I think now, though, the Beavers and the Cougars would have enough money to offer good enough guarantees for teams coming in that they might be able to get a decent game or two out of that. So having money in your pocket is always a good thing. Advice to you, young fella.
Yes.
It's better to have money than not have money.
Well, it gives you options. And more importantly now, it can help you solidify yourself for a couple of years until you figure out what the next step is in terms of, do we want to do a reverse merger or join a different conference? And we'll get to that in just a moment. But for Oregon State in particular, Godfather, now they can get out in front of the Jonathan Smith situation, make sure that he's taken care of, extend him as far out as you need to make sure he doesn't go anywhere. They've already taken care of Scott Barnes. And now, as you put it, it's important now that Oregon State and Washington State get together and are lock and step on every decision they make moving forward, not only for the best interest of those two schools, but also in the immediate aftermath of the ruling to make sure they don't do anything rather harsh that could come back to bite them if it reaches the appeals court.
Yeah, because the verdict in this case included instructions from the judge to keep the 10 schools informed on what you're doing. And they haven't broken away yet, so you have to kind of keep them up to date on what you're doing. Don't mess that up, or it will go to another court, and you're likely to get it overturned if you haven't followed the instructions of the court.
That's right.
So
be smart and be patient.
Right, and be patient, because really, Chad, you can't afford a bad decision now on your future. There's so much at stake in this situation on where you're going to go and who you're going to do it with.
Well, I've said what I want the two schools to do. I want them to go to the Mountain West, and their commissioner used to work within the Pac-12, so very familiar with the operation. I want Washington State and Oregon State to perform a reverse merger to where all of the Mountain West schools join the Pac-2 and become a brand new conference underneath the Pac-12 umbrella, because I think under those circumstances, they can go out once they have the entire conference formed, however many teams are going to be in it. Then you can go back out to market and see what type of TV deal you can get to further solidify yourself long term. That's what I want, because I think the Pac-12 name carries more power than the Mountain West name with its history and its tradition.
Yeah, yeah.
And then from there, you don't just have to settle on the schools from the Mountain West. They can also go out and look to other schools around the country who are looking for a new home, schools that would make sense, that you think would fit in with what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, who's out there now? I mean, I always think of BYU. Nobody's ever really pulled them in football.
Well, they're Big 12 now.
Oh, that's right. They went in the Big 12, didn't they?
They're Big 12, so they're set. I would think a school like SMU. You can take a look at some of these other smaller conferences with schools.
They're not going into the Big 12?
SMU's not going into the Big 12. So there are options out there. But most importantly, it starts with the Mountain West. Get that reverse merger done, get those schools in, and then, because it's going to be much easier to recruit other potential schools when you know what your list of schools is going to be and you know how big the conference is going to be. And more importantly, once you have a full list and you know exactly what your conference is going to be 2 years from now or a year from now, whenever they're able to pull out the reverse merger, then it's going to be much easier to go to the television networks, try and get a deal set down when you know, hey, we have 14 teams or we have 16 teams, and they know exactly what those schools are going to be.
Right.
It's going to be easier for them to operate.
Yeah, then I think that's a really good idea. Plus, then you'd be able to fill out a football schedule. I mean, you need to know who you're playing and when so that you can go in to your boosters, tout your schedule, and tell them what they're buying and what they're supporting. Because this is also an important time. You got to go to those boosters and say, hey, we need you now like we've never needed you before. You've got to really step up for us now. Yeah, we got the big verdict in court, but we're still going to need your support to get on television and to become what we were when we were in the Pac-12.
One last point that Wilner made, Godfather, he said, one of the first questions to surface following the Libby's ruling, will WSU and OSU hoard the entirety of the $420 million in revenue due to the Pac-12 in 23-24, or will they adopt a magnanimous approach and share the cash with the outbound schools? He says, we aren't so sure they have a choice. The bylaws dictate reasonable treatment, according to a source. Defining reasonable will assuredly require more billable hours, but Libby made his opinion clear. Quote, the preliminary injunction is going to be modified to make sure the other 10 schools are still treated in a fair manner, nobody's going to take advantage of somebody else.
Well, that's ironic because they're going to have to treat the 10 better than the 10 we're going to treat them. Tell you that.
He went on to say that Wilner did, if WSU and OSU attempt to bulldoze their way to every last dime, the two sides will wind up right back where they started, in court. Quote, the notion that WSU and OSU would take all the money and divide it between the two, that would put everyone right back in gridlock, according to a source. And the hope is to get out of this gridlock. So they will get the majority, but they'll have to share some of it with the outgoing schools to make sure that there's fair treatment according to the judge.
Well, Chad, that's why, again, a settlement makes so much sense.
Yep.
You get in a room with those schools and talk it out. And you're going to be at loggerheads at first. It's going to be wide apart. But if you can get close, everybody walks away without so many billable hours.
Yes.
You know, that makes a lot of sense for all the schools.
Yes. So that way, in a settlement situation, you're giving up some, but you're not doing an equal share. So
Right.
You're getting the majority, but every school is going to get something in the process, which you and I both agree they probably deserve that because they were a large part of the reason why that revenue came in.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Oregon State and Washington State.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, and look, University of Washington and University of Oregon are entitled to some of that money. We know that. And that's only fair. And that's why I think it's not being magnanimous, it's being fair. Let's take care of them. And again, they're not going to get what they want. You know that. But then they can look on the other side of the coin and say, yeah, but we're not going to have to spend $2 million on attorneys either.
Yeah.
Because billable hours on something like this, oh, man, they kill you on this.
It adds up fast.
Oh, they kill you.
Adds up fast.
Already, they've probably spent a lot more than they thought they were going to spend.
Yes. Yes.
They're probably being billed for attorneys to sit down and watch all the Pac-12 games last weekend. You know, who knows?
Yeah. I would say for the situation as bad as it is for Washington State and Oregon State to be left in this really awkward spot, this is about as good of a scenario as they could have hoped for through the whole process. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're the winners. Right now, at least, they're the winners.
I just wanted them to have an opportunity to survive for a year or two until they can plot their next course.
Right. And really, Chad, I think it's fair to say the rest is up to them. They've gotten the shaft, but you know what? They're still alive. They still got money in their pocket. Now you have to be creative, you have to be resourceful, and you have to go out and make something of this and make that money mean something.
I still can't believe that Deshaun Watson's being shut down for the year. I can't believe that.
Well, he is. It's too bad.
It is. The Broncos play the Browns a week from Sunday. I was concerned about that game.
Yeah.
Now
you're not as concerned now.
No. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, okay, they can deal with that.
Yeah, DTR running a little read option there in the pros.
Gosh. It's amazing how good fortune, going back to what you said about the teams that you play, getting Cleveland at home with Deshaun Watson's a problem. Getting Cleveland at home with Dorian Thompson-Robinson becomes a totally different scenario. That's a gift. That's good fortune right there.
Yeah. And you got a week to scout them, too. It's not like you got to play them right away, so you're not quite sure what they might do. You got a week to scout them.
Who would you rather face, Coach Payton, P.J. Walker or Dorian Thompson-Robinson? It doesn't matter.
Chad, I will say one thing. How does that contract look now that they gave Deshaun Watson? My gosh.
It's brutal.
Oh, man.
He's missed 39 games in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
Well, it's a problem when he got paid. He got paid for him.
Leave it to the Browns. That family. That's a clown show. $230 million fully guaranteed for a freak, literally a freak. It's crazy. But that's the Haslam family. They're known for being crazy and doing dumb things. And bad franchises over a long period of time, they're bad for a reason because the people at the top have no clue of what they're doing.
Bad ownership always has a way of seeping downward. It just seeps like a dirty virus of some sort.
Yeah.
It gets down to the bottom and infects everybody.
A good example would be teams that are run by a trust and not a true owner.
I think you have something there. You're onto something.
Oh, goodness. All right. So props to the Beavs. and the Cougs. They got over. This is a big win, and I would imagine, I don't think it's going to get reversed. I think they're on really strong footing right now.
Yeah.
And they're in a good spot, and now they can proceed forward, but more importantly, have the money to operate. If this would have gone against them, they were effed in every sense of the word.
They
Screwed
were.
completely.
Yeah.
Like done.
Well, yeah.
We have no money to operate, and we have nowhere to go.
Right, and maybe having to drop athletics. I mean, that's impossible. You'd think that's impossible, but it's real possible.
Heck, even now that they've got time, maybe instead of doing a reverse merger or just joining the Mountain West, maybe the Big 12 will reach out and ask them if they want to join. You know, there's other options that could play out over the next year or two.
That's possible. If they did, you got to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're playing against better competition, better scheduling, better opportunity to have, postseason opportunities.
You're at least in the picture in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Especially with a 12-team playoff, Chad. Your conference champ in that conference is probably going to go automatically, I would think, with a 12-team playoff.
Oh, by the way, how about Oregon State being a number 11 in the latest playoff rankings? You think Jonathan Smith's doing a good job?
Yeah.
He's coming off a 10-win season and a victory in the Vegas Bowl. Now he's got them right back in a position to where they're one of the best teams we've seen in school history.
Well, I could make an argument they should be number 10 rather than number 11. But the big thing for me is, what is the point spread against the Huskies? Undefeated Washington, number 5 ranked. They're number 11 ranked. What is the point spread?
The current point spread in that football game, the Beavs -2.5.
Oregon State is favored by 2.5 over undefeated Washington.
Yeah.
I can't figure that one out. That's respect for the program. Big time.
Yeah, they're really good. Like, the Beavers are no joke.
Yeah.
Like, we keep looking for perfection because they don't throw it the way we want. They don't score as many points at times the way we want. Here's the reality about Oregon State.
And they lost to 2 teams that they shouldn't have lost to.
Well,
at least one team.
Yeah, they shouldn't have lost to Washington State, but they weren't prepared for that game.
Yeah.
The Arizona game is Arizona's a really good football team, and you're playing that game on the road. What makes the game so frustrating is that the coach made a very poor decision that put you behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
But Arizona outplayed them in the second half, but it was still like, what are you doing running the kicker? It's a tough pill to swallow. But for Oregon State, here's the beauty. We never thought they were going to be a playoff team in the Final Four. But if they beat Washington, and they're favored, it sets them up for everything that they want. They knew they had to play at Oregon before the year began. You go to Oregon with the same set of circumstances if they beat Washington. You beat the Ducks, you're in the Pac-12 title game. And not only in the Pac-12 title game, but you knock the Ducks out of the Pac-12 title game and the playoff.
The playoff, yeah.
Wow. You do that. You pull that one off, Jonathan Smith, you're legend status instantly.
Well, that's lifetime contract stuff. That's that long-term 20-year contract deal.
You're a lifetimer now.
Oh, God, yes.
I would go and put a lifetime. You can be our coach as long as you want.
Yeah. How many years you want? You say you love Corvallis. Here's your chance.
Show us how much you love
You're
Corvallis.
living here the rest of your life.
Like I said, he's the only guy that could ever say that where I'm like, yeah, I believe him.
Yeah.
Anyone else says that, I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Godfather, you informed me that Shaden Sharp is listed as probable tonight with a sore knee.
Sore knee, yes.
Well, if there's any guy that probably has a sore knee right now, it'd be Shaden Sharp. I was surprised last night to hear that he leads the NBA in minutes played.
Yeah.
And that's a product of really the Blazers' injuries. They've needed him on the floor. And in a way, I'm actually happy because this is NBA life. Sometimes you have to play more than what you're expected to play because of situations or circumstances. But at the same time, they might want to back off the heavy minutes for him just to a degree, maybe.
Yeah, I think the other thing involved in it is this a guy who didn't play that year before the pros.
Yep.
And I think they just want him to get as much playing time as possible. But there has to be some judgment exercised on that because you don't want him sitting down at the end of the bench in street clothes alongside Simons and Henderson and Brogdon and everybody else who's out. I mean, you got to keep him healthy. Let's cut it back. Give him, I'd say, cut it all the way back to 36 or 37 and play him a little more than that at the end of a game if you need him. But that's too many minutes. 40 minutes a game, and he plays pretty hard. He's very explosive. You don't want to do damage to one of his knees that makes him less explosive, or you're taking a big part of his game away. So let's play it a little safer than that. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to do it. You don't want to, no need to put undue stress on any of the youngsters right now. What I noticed with Shaden, and he's coming along, I was told by someone where, Jeremy Grant believes that Shaden doesn't even recognize how good he is yet, meaning he doesn't trust his explosiveness, his ability to get to the rim. A lot of times he won't turn the corner and continue the drive. He'll pull up. Like he's still learning the game. Or we've seen him in situations where he'll leap too soon and try to attack the rim, and he'll get an offensive foul call. He's still learning and adjusting. He had 7 turnovers in the game against the Lakers. He only had 3 last night. So you can see the adjustment period. I think a lot of the turnovers could be fatigue.
Well, I do too, and I think you might be able to attribute some of his problems making shots to the same thing.
Yeah, his legs.
I in the fourth quarter last night, his shots started to flatten out a little bit.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting the elevation on his jumper. That's just tiredness. I think for him, Chad, that's going to be the biggest task is bringing his jump shot up to just league average. If he can be a league average 3-point shooter, he'll be fine because of his ability to get to the rim.
I agree. And I appreciate his aggressiveness. He's done a pretty good job so far this year of attacking and being able to get to the foul line. The Blazers last night, see, I'm having fun watching them play right now because they did a lot of good things, and I'm seeing the effort defensively. Like they're contesting, they're communicating, and the youngsters that are out there are working their tails off. They lost the game last night because they couldn't make shots. And you know the saying, it's a make-or-miss league.
Yeah.
They went 15 of 45 from the floor in the second half. And in that fourth quarter, they were 1 of 11 from 3. And they were just 4 of 19 in that second half from downtown. And what happened is they come out to start the fourth, and they go on a quick run. They cut the lead down to 2. And then all of a sudden, the Jazz go on a 13-0 run. But during that stretch, the Blazers went more than 5 minutes without a field goal.
Yeah.
The problem is with this team right now, especially with the injuries, they don't have guys that can make shots. So there's going to be a lot of nights like this where they compete well, they play defense, but they don't make shots. And the other issue last night, they got killed on the offensive glass. I think the Jazz got 16 offensive rebounds. They had a 20-12 edge in second chance points, and they turned it over 17 times, and the Jazz get over 20 points on points off turnovers. They're not good enough to overcome the mistakes because their offense, they can't make up for that with their three-point shooting.
Right.
Dead last in the NBA in offensive efficiency. They're like 27th in the league in three-point shooting right now, percentage-wise.
Yeah, I think in that case, too, what you have to do as a coach and as a team is you got to start thinking about getting the ball inside a little more, or even the mid-range. Go to the mid-range because they obviously, DeAndre Ayton is really good in the mid-range.
Yep.
and I think Grant probably would be too. Let's just get a little closer if we can, and not take as many threes, even though it takes a lot of threes to win games.
Yep.
But if you can't make them, there's really no point in playing that way.
Well, those were the two guys last night that were consistent. Grant led the team in scoring. He was 10 of 17 from the floor. Aiden, double-double, 10 of 17 from the floor. Those two guys are playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hesitate at all to get Aiden even more involved right now.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Get easier buckets. Get him inside. Let him attack and get more opportunities, even in the mid-range where he can pull up and shoot.
Well, that's what they need to do, Chad. They need to play more pick and roll, because when they do that, other teams are still playing a lot of drop coverage against him.
Yeah.
And that leaves him wide open at, say, the free throw line. You're seeing he's getting wide open jumpers at the foul line almost every night. And if he can keep getting those, he's going to make those shots. So run a few more of those. They have not been a pick and roll team much this year. So I'd like to see a little more of that. But you can't be too dissatisfied because they're playing so well given who they have sitting on the sidelines in street clothes. I mean, really, more than half their production is injured right now.
And let me double check here. Last night, they were number 9 in the league in defensive rating going into the game against the Jazz. And we'll take a quick peek here at where they sit today. They're number 10. So they're still top 10 defense, which is good because I was curious to see if those numbers would continue to hold steady with games in Sacramento, the Lakers, and then Utah. And the answer is yes. They're playing good defense.
And without Robert Williams, who is a big cog in their secondary defense.
Props to Chauncey Billups. I got to give him credit. They're playing hard. They're defending. And the fact that they're a top 10 defense is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
I'll ask you the same question I had yesterday. 3 options of the biggest surprise so far this year for the Blazers. And you can pick something else if you want, but the 3 I came up with were the emergence of Shaedon Sharpe, being able to step into a starting role and play well. And he needs to continue to improve, but he's already exceeded my expectation because of what I saw in the preseason. I was wondering whether he should start or not. So you got Sharpe's development, the emergence of Tamani Kamara, who's played well, especially defensively for them, or the defensive improvement as a team. What would be the biggest surprise to you so far?
The defensive improvement.
Yeah, that was my choice.
Yeah, that's got to be number one. I think Kamara and actually Jabari Walker has played really well too.
He played one of the he was with Grant and Ayton as
last night,
one of the best guys. 12 points, 8 boards off the bench. But, dude, like, you can tell Chauncey Billups really likes him because he works his ass off.
And I think he's a smart player. He doesn't make too many mistakes.
No.
He's ultra aggressive without fouling too much most of the time. He's really, I think, has a chance to be a good player.
He does. And credit to him because he put a lot of work into the offseason on his game, and you can see that work has paid off. I like him a lot. Yeah. Good attitude, approach, but, man, when he gets in the game, he doesn't jack around, Godfather. Like, he goes full on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a lot of guys in the league do that, but he does. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Blazers and Cavaliers coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. That's when the game will tip off. And I'll have game day starting for you at 4:30. When we come back, we got a pair of tickets to give away, and we want to further dive into this college football playoff rankings. Can't trust the committee. You got the Rip City Drive.
report finds the climate crisis is getting much worse.
More context.
We are seeing record numbers of people crossing.
And here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 4 o'clock chat here. What up? We start in the NFL. Bad news for the Browns. Deshaun Watson is done for the year. He is being shut down and will get surgery on his throwing shoulder. Dorian Thompson-Robinson will start Sunday against the Steelers. New batch of college football playoff rankings dropped last night. Georgia's won. They got back-to-back wins over Mizzou and Ole Miss. Michigan's number 2, coming off the win over Penn State. Ohio State 3, Florida State number 4. Washington and Oregon remain the first 2 teams out. The Huskies will be in Corvallis Saturday to take on the Beavs. 4:30 kick. Oregon State favored by 2.5. The Ducks are in ASU to take on the Sun Devils. That game will tip off at 1. The Ducks are favored by 22. The Blazers, second of a back-to-back tonight against Cleveland. Tip off at 7 from Moda. I'll have game day starting at 4:30. The Blazers coming off a loss in Utah last night after going 15 of 45 from the field in the second half.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
All right, that sounds to me like the Chipmunks. And Michael Shacker's having fun because some clown decided to get off in the office today and microwave fish. I haven't smelled something that bad in a long time. I walked in and immediately was overwhelmed with the hideous stench of fish in the microwave. And I was bitter instantly. I'm like, who does that?
Chad,
Use your dome.
It's the worst thing I've smelled in this studio ever. And you know how much ground that covers.
Yeah. I told Shacker that the fish, when I walked in today, smells worse than my fart. He just laughed at me. But the thing is, I don't want to know who did it because I literally do like everyone that works in the office.
Yeah.
And if I found out who was responsible, it would change my view of that individual.
Yeah, so it's better you don't.
I don't want to know. But whoever did it is a clown, and you shouldn't be doing that. It reeks in here.
It still does.
Yeah.
It's like what? It's 2 hours. It's not going to ever dissipate. We need that fan out here in the hallway.
Now, someone on YouTube chat had a genius idea. Go and grab some microwave popcorn and just pop it. Now, I agree that that's a good idea. The problem is I don't roll around with microwave popcorn. I've never once thought, hey, I should eat some popcorn and let that stuff get hung up in my throat right before a radio show. But as bad as fish in the microwave smells, the opposite end of the spectrum is popcorn. Yeah. I think popcorn, it's right up there with probably its top. I think he's been in this studio and done a show before. They live in the same building, but they live in separate units. And they both love that because Jay Moore's like, look, I make weird noises when I sleep. I sweat. I'm a disgusting human being.
Right.
He said, she should be allowed to sleep like a Barbie doll still in the box, like a princess. So she's in the top unit. He's in the bottom unit. She can come down the elevator and visit him. She'll come down and hang out. And then when she's ready to go to bed, she's like, okay, I'm going up. Okay, no problem.
You know, Chad.
That's a great living.
That's part of my marital advice to people.
Yeah, why share too much space?
Well, yeah, I always advise two things. Number one, have that other bedroom available. Maybe you don't want to use it all the time, but there's plenty of times when you will want to use it.
If you don't want to disrupt their sleep and you're getting up at different times, right?
Hey, I used to have to work. You know how it was when I was covering the Blazers. I didn't get home till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
She's got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not going to get in there and wake her up. No. I got to have. And then some days she gets up real early. I want to sleep in. It works perfect. The other piece of advice: 2 DVRs, 2 TV sets,
2 bathrooms.
You got your stuff, 2 bathrooms. Oh, you gotta have 2 bathrooms. Are you kidding me? Nobody wants to share a bathroom with me.
No.
Okay, I'll say that right now. But it just works out that you have your own stuff. You can still be very much in love, live a happy life, and I think you'll be happier if you separate a little bit. You don't have to be together all the time, right?
I really think that's the way to go because it's amazing how the little things can add up and irritate someone to a point where they're like, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
The bathroom space is a big deal, but I thought, man, that is genius. And she performed an intervention with his agent and other people when he was messed out on drugs.
Oh, really?
He was heading down a path of destruction, but she loved him so much that she helped perform the intervention, and now he's, rehabbed and recovered, and they're doing just fine. It just made me appreciate her so much more. I'm totally down with Jeannie Buss.
Yeah.
I think she's wonderful.
Yeah, you always have been. He's kind of a weird guy, isn't he?
Yeah, all comedians are crazy. They're all crazy.
Yeah, you're right. It takes that kind of person probably to be that funny.
Yeah. So I would recommend my two favorite YouTube fixes right now. Vlad TV, phenomenal. He just did the sit down with what's his nuts that helped fix NBA games as a ref. Tim Donaghy. Great. I watched all that.
Vlad TV, right?
Yeah.
VLAD.
Yeah, Vlad. DJ Vlad is awesome. Vlad TV is terrific for interviews. He's perfect at it because he's not going in with an agenda. What he's trying to do is he wants to create a video record of all these different stories. He just did a sit down with RFK. So he asks questions and then lets them share the stories because he's trying to create a video record. It's genius. But Graham Bensinger, sports guy, most of the people he talks to are sports-related type individuals, but he does a good job of asking questions. And because he's such a nice guy, people feel comfortable like sharing, being open and sharing things with him.
He's like isn't he Fox? Isn't that what
I don't
somebody
know.
screens those shows?
Yeah, I don't know who does it. I just know that he was friends of one of Bob Costas' kids when he was younger, so he knows Bob, and I don't know, it's a good thing. But anyways, the Jeannie Buss interview is good. So I'd recommend checking it out. All right, the playoff rankings. I mean, seriously, I just want to know what your take is. Right now, Washington has 3 wins over current top 25 teams. 3. Florida State has 1. Florida State and Washington are both undefeated. Why is Florida State ranked ahead of Washington? Not that I expect the committee to make sense, but why do you think they have FSU at 4 and Washington at 5?
Because Washington is in the Pac-12. Right? It's that reputation from years and years of not even being considered to be in the conference.
I think you're right. I think that's what it is.
They weren't even in the running some of these years. Nobody even said, oh, yeah, maybe those a few times, but not many.
So I think what's going on here is exactly what you said. We believe the Pac-12 is having its best year. But outside of the West Coast or fans of the conference, no one gives a flying rip about the conference, and they certainly don't respect it.
Well, the fact that it's imploding right now, too, might have something to do with that, too.
Yeah. And it also tells me that the Pac-12 needs to be perfect down the stretch if they want to get in.
Yeah.
Washington winning out, being unbeaten, and having a Pac-12 championship would pretty much guarantee their way in.
That's the best chance for this conference to get a team in.
Yes. Oregon right now, as it sits, is going to need some help, meaning you do not want Alabama to go unbeaten and beat Georgia in the SEC title game, and you don't want Texas to go unbeaten and finish out with 1 loss in a Big 12 championship.
Right.
Because if those two teams have that, they're going to get the nod over a 1-loss Oregon.
And they've kept Alabama lurking around close enough to jump them right up if they were to win the SEC.
Yeah, pretty much. Very interesting to watch and see how this unfolds. The Ducks did get a little bit of help this past weekend. They jumped, I think they're number 52 right now in strength of schedule. They got out from Texas Tech, who beat Kansas. And, of course, Oregon got over on USC. I really do think if you're a Duck fan, you need to root for Washington to win out. You don't want them to lose this weekend in Corvallis. You need them to be unbeaten when you take them out in that Pac-12 title game. You want every advantage your way to make sure the committee, you got to make it as hard on them as possible. But if Washington takes a loss and they've got 1 loss, then all of a sudden that victory in the Pac-12 title game doesn't look quite as good. And Texas and Alabama right now they're both right near the top in terms of strength of schedule. So there should be no surprise to anyone. It's the Pac-12. We know it's good this year. We know it's deep. We know there's a lot of good players, and the quarterback play is unbelievable. But clearly, based on what I'm seeing in the rankings that have been released thus far, the committee doesn't give a rip. They don't care. FSU should not be ahead of Washington, but they are. Why? Because Washington's out of the Pac-12. And they probably think in their mind FSU is better than Washington. I don't believe that, but clearly the committee does. Because resume-wise, it doesn't stack up. 3 wins versus 1 win is a better resume.
That's easy math for me.
Against top 25 teams. All right, I'll ask you again. I want to know where you sit. What do you think about Washington, Oregon State? You like the Huskies still?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's not saying I want them to win or anything like that. I think that point spread's whack. If I were a betting man, I'd be all over Washington in this getting points. I would.
My guess is the majority of the public would view that the same way. Wait, Washington?
Yeah.
Playing the Beavs getting points?
Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Give me the points and I'll take Washington. I think the Beavers are going to win the game. I think they're going to win. I think that they're going to, whatever the Beavers have inside of them, you're going to get the best performance from the Beavs this weekend. They are dynamite at home. They are a very good defensive team. Outside of the early season loss at Washington State, the secondary is tightened up. They're physical, and they're going to be able to run the football on that. The Washington defense, by the way, they suck. They're not good at all by any metric. They're not a good defense. Oregon State will be able to move the ball and get chunk plays on them, meaning they're going to be able to score points on them. Most importantly, they're going to be able to run and do what they do best. They can run the football on Washington. And you know what that means? It opens up the play action for DJU. Now, on the flip side, I don't care how good your defense is, dealing with Penix and those receivers is a problem.
Yeah, they're going to score points. Pretty hard to keep them off the board. I think you're going to have to get 35 to beat them. That's what I would say.
Well, they've been running around the Washington practices this week with chainsaws, blaring the chainsaw sound in their ears.
On a boom box. The guys running around, putting it in people's faces.
Yep.
I know how that is, though. That is a very annoying sound effect. You agree?
Yeah, but I like it. But it is annoying. I like it, though. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I like it because it's not meant to be soothing. It's meant to be an annoying distraction for opposing teams. Yeah. And it's when the Beavers get hot and they're rolling at home, which has pretty much been the case the last couple of years. I mean, that thing's nonstop. I've noticed as I get older that I become more annoyed at little things like that. Why is there so much noise here?
Yeah.
That's a big game for Jonathan Smith.
Yeah.
And you win that game, people will start to forget a little bit about the loss to Arizona. You take out Washington.
Sure.
That's going to be good. That's a big-time football game. You know it's good, too, because everyone I've talked to up there, they all respect this game. They all respect the Beavs. No one talks about the Beavs, but they all respect him and don't really want to go down to Corvallis to play him because they know that you're going to get a dogfight.
Oh, I know. Even Softy, he talks very, very highly of the Beavers.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Game day's coming up at 4:30. Chris Burkhart will join me. And when we come back, we got a pair of tickets that we're going to give you. That's right. We're feeling pretty friendly today, so we got a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson, who's going to be at the RVN Style Resorts Amphitheater on September 28th. We'll give you a pair of tickets to win next. iHeartRadio celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month with specially curated playlists spotlighting Hispanic artists for their achievements and contributions to the Hispanic community and culture through their incredible music. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Hispanic Heritage Month to listen now.
Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Here on It's Rip City Drive on 620 Rip City Radio, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
You know one thing I love about Michael Shacker? He made a mistake and played music over us for part of a segment on YouTube.
Yeah.
He gets called out in the chat on it, and then he responds under the heading of 620 Rip City Radio.
Yes. Yeah.
And blames you for it.
I know. It's like, yeah, he said I wanted to hear it.
This goes back to his resistance to authority, which is strong.
Very strong. You got to keep your eye on him.
Chris Burkhardt told me that he hung up on Shacker a couple of days ago because Shacker was being too demanding over the phone. I believe that. And I also know that Shacker doesn't respect authority down in the valley because Shacker, with the YouTube stuff, he's funny because he's really good at it. But he told me, he goes, yeah, Burkhardt, he's only telling me what I can't do, but I want to know what I can do. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's best to tell you what you can't do and start from there.
Yeah, because if you don't, I mean, he knows what he wants to do, and that's what he can do in his mind.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he operates. And the thing is that I understand that about him, and I just embrace it.
Yeah.
I just realized that with Shacker, you're going to get a whole different set of circumstances. Like, I'll ask him a question, but then I realize, like, oh, I didn't ask it specific enough. I have to say, what is your specific plan for this day? Because in his mind, if I ask him to do something, he's like, I've got that, but he's got his own plans for how he's going to accomplish it.
Yeah, he's really got a great way of doing business too, Chad. I've noticed what he'll do is he'll ask you, hey, what do you think we ought to do on January 28th when we got this and this and this? And it's so far in the future that you're going to, I don't know, I'll tell you later. Or you might even give him an answer. But by the time that rolls around, you'll have forgotten what you told him. You'll say, well, Chad, you told me this is what I could do.
I love people, too, because he'll send out all these scheduling emails, right?
Uh-huh.
And he gets mad that we don't read them, right? But then when other people send emails, I'm like, well, did you read the email? He's like, no, I didn't have time. It was too long. See, it's the same thing applies.
Yeah.
We all do that. And like I'm like that though. If like I have a problem with people that like to write pages worth, like if I look at a tweet or a text and there's too many words, I instantly check out. I'm like, that's too much. I don't have the attention span to deal with that many words.
No kidding.
I think most of us are like that now, right?
Yeah.
Or if some people call you, you're like, I can't take this call. I don't want to be on the phone for 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We know who does that. Yeah.
I got people. I can only answer the phone or call if I know I'm going to be in the car for an extended period of time. Now, my buddy Steve, I can call him, and we've got an agreement. Like if something comes up and I just say out, I'm out.
Yeah.
No explanation needed. We'll talk when we have a chance to talk. But I don't have time to explain to you that I need to get off the phone. I'll just say out, and he knows what that means, and I know what that means. I like that type of arrangement. But when I call someone, I'm like, I shouldn't need a 5-minute exit strategy to get out of a conversation. Drives me crazy.
I'm with you on that.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
What I love about you, and I get this all the time too, but people know our lives. Like the people, our family, they know what we do every day.
You hope, yeah.
You hope, but they still call like at the most inopportune times.
Yeah.
My son, especially Isaac, he's a big time violator. Mom, all my family members, they call, what are you doing? I go on air at 3 every day. I'm preparing the show right now. What can I do for you? What do you need?
Yeah, I don't mind the call. It's just like, understand, I'm gonna be rushed.
Yeah.
So make it as quick as possible, and I'll give you an answer as quickly as I can. The one thing that there's a lot of people that, maybe you're not as close to who don't understand the preparation. It's like, we're here early. So when you call, you think, well, they go on the air at 3, I'll call them at 2. We're pretty busy at 2.
Yeah, 2 is the most stressful time in Dwight and I's day every day.
Putting the show together is much more nerve-wracking than actually doing the show. Right, Chad?
I hate it. It's a difficult, it's like birthing pains every day.
Yeah, it's rough.
All right, we have tickets to give away. Lainey Wilson's going to be in concert September 28th at RVN Style Resorts Amphitheater. You can get your tickets November 17th at 10 o'clock at Ticketmaster.com. But we have a pair right now. So we'll take caller 4. Fire away with your phone calls. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Call now. Caller 4 gets a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson, who's going to be at the RV In-Style Resorts Amphitheater. All right, Godfather, you heading down to Moda tonight?
Maybe. Not sure yet. Not sure.
Cavs and Blazers coming up at 7. I've got game day coming up here in 4 minutes. If you're on hold, stay there. I'll get to your phone calls.
Lainey Wilson.
Yeah, she's big
Popular.
Time. All right.
Woo.
We got more Lainey Wilson tickets to give away the rest of the week, too. Game day's up next. Big thanks to the Godfather, Blazers, and Cavs at 7. At 7, and I will be with you up until 6 o'clock until Curtis Long takes over for your Trailblazer pregame show. Chris Burkhardt is here, and we're ready for another evening of basketball. We appreciate your time, and I got to be honest with you. I said it last night. I know it sounds cheesy and maybe corny, whatever word you want to use to describe it, but I'm really enjoying the way the Blazers are playing right now. And I never thought I could say that about a team that's 3-7, but it goes back to the expectations that I had going into the year and an understanding of where the franchise is at and what they're trying to accomplish. And that's number one, player development. Number two, it's really getting an idea if Chauncey Billups and his staff can get the players to play the way he wants them to. And I think early on, so far this season, the answer is yes. I thought last night was another good example of what we've seen so far this year, where there were multiple guys who stepped up and made some game-winning plays, were productive, and put them in a position to where they had a chance. And Jeremy Grant, 26 points on 10 of 17 shooting, 3 of 6 from downtown. The coach has asked him to be more aggressive and really pick up his scoring. He's done that. Tamani Kamara last night got the start, 9 points, 5 boards, and an assist. He has been tremendous defensively this year, showcasing his athleticism and his length. I thought DeAndre Ayton was really good last night, and he's been really solid for them over the last couple of weeks. 22 points, 10 boards, 3 assists. And he, like Jeremy Grant, 10 of 17 from the floor. They got 40 minutes from Shaedon Sharpe, 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. He had an effective floor game, just 4 of 16 from the floor, 2 of 10 from downtown. So he's not shooting the ball well, but that could be impacted by the fact that he's the league leader in minutes played right now. I think fatigue's setting in a bit. And I saw that he's got a sore knee. He'll play tonight, but I would imagine he'll have a reduction in minutes. But I'm happy to see him continue to work hard as he's been called into the starting lineup. And, you know, you see his teammates, especially the vets, showing confidence in him when he's got the ball in his hands and is forced to make decisions. So very pleased to see that. Skylar Mays, not as productive with the points last night, but still 6 points, 10 assists. And he's doing a good job the last couple of games. He had 1 turnover against the Lakers, 2 turnovers last night. So he's running the offense and doing the things that Chauncey Billups, wants him to do. Off the bench, the surprise last night, as it has been throughout the year and even in the game last night, Jabari Walker, 21 minutes, 12 points, 8 boards, 2 steals. The energy and effort that we've seen from Jabari and Tamani off the bench early in the season, last night Tamani in the starting lineup, those two guys have been critical to spearheading the defensive attack. And the Blazers, after last night, they entered tonight's game number 10 in the league in defensive rating. Their top 10 defense. I don't care what you say or what your take on Chauncey Billups is. You have to give credit where credit is due. The defensive improvement through 10 games is impressive. I didn't think there was going to be anywhere near top 10. And yet the guys have responded. I think there's a couple of things going on there. One, the roster is filled with, more guys who are capable defensively. But I think also not having Dame in the locker room, having a lot of young guys, I think Chauncey Billups is in a position now where he can really kind of exert his force and personality on the roster. He's got more power. He's got more control. And as a result, he can get guys to play the way he wants them to play. And that's a good thing. So I'm impressed with what I see in the way that they play. Again, I'm not looking for wins and losses. I'm looking for incremental improvement. I'm looking for that from individuals, the youngsters, and I'm looking for that from Chauncey Billups and his staff. And so far, we're seeing that. They've got a long way to go, but I like what I'm seeing so far. The big issue last night for the Blazers was the offense. And this is going to be something that will continue to be an issue, especially as long as Anthony Simons is out of the lineup, because they don't have a lot of guys who can knock down shots. They don't have anyone that can rely on to knock down three-point shots, and that's going to be an issue in a league where, a lot of teams know how to score. And the Blazers last night in that second half, brutal. 15 of 45 from the field, 4 of 19 from downtown in the second half. In the fourth quarter alone, where they got blitzed and only scored 13 points, it was ugly. 4 of 23 from the field in the fourth for 17%, 1 of 11 from downtown. So the shooting woes were a big issue last night in the second half. The Blazers cut the lead to 2 at 95-93. I think there was 11 minutes left in the game at that point. The Jazz went on a 13-0 run, so they moved the lead up to 15 at 108-93. The Blazers went over 5 minutes without a field goal. And you just can't win a lot of games when you go through a scoreless drought like that. Now, for the Blazers to overcome the offensive issues, there's a couple things they have to do to remain competitive and have a chance to win games. They got to continue to play defense, and they're doing that. But the other issues, they have to rely on they've got to be resourceful. They've got to rebound well, and they've got to protect the basketball. And last night, with the poor shooting in the second half, combined with the turnovers and the lack of rebounding, it cost them. The Blazers last night, 17 turnovers, which led to 23 points for the Jazz. So the Jazz were plus 12 in points off turnovers. And then 16 offensive rebounds. So the Jazz not only a big edge in points off turnovers, but they also had an edge in second chance points, 20-12. And with the turnovers, the Jazz able to get out in transition. They had a 20-9 edge in fast break points. So for the Blazers to have a chance to win games, they can ill afford big mistakes. They can't afford the big mistakes. They've got to be able to overcome. And they've got to find other ways to win. Defense, rebounding, being opportunistic, and not giving easy buckets to the other team. So tonight, that's really what I'm looking for. Continued effort defensively, guys playing hard, protect the basketball, and give yourself a chance to be within striking distance in the fourth quarter. And we've seen this throughout each game that they've been in where they've been able to battle back. They were down double digits going into the fourth quarter against the Lakers. They opened up the quarter on a 12-2 run and put themselves back in a position down 1. And then when they got down by 8, they went on a 7-0 run and put themselves in a position. They made a couple of mistakes down the stretch, and it cost them, but they were right there. The effort level, the way they're competing, it is really something you have to appreciate. And keep in mind that they got a number of their best players out. Malcolm Brogdon, Scoot Henderson are not in the lineup. Anthony Simons and Robert Williams, who's done for the year. That's like 4 of your best players. And yet these guys are still competing and putting themselves in a position. So that's good. That's what I'm looking for. And I don't know what your expectations were going in, but I like what I see so far from this group. All right, telephone number is 503-248-0620. Let's go out to Eric, who's in Carlton. He's going to the Blazer game. Eric, appreciate the phone call. You're up on Game Day. What's on your mind? Eric. That's a real bummer. Eric,
Come on,
are you there?
Chad.
What's up, Eric?
Yeah, I'm there. You got me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hey, me and my son are headed to the game right now. One a couple of days ago. This is our third time heading up this year. We went to Fan Fest and pregame, so first game this season. We're Knicks fans that I've called a couple of times, so I'm going to try to recruit Spida to come to the Knicks tonight. But yeah, man, we've really, really been about the Blazers, and man, I love Scoot. We've been enjoying following his footage.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Eric. You're, Carlton, difficult place for phone reception, but I appreciate the phone call. I hope you and your son have a good time. And be careful, because if you spend a lot of time at Moda Center, you're going to cease to be a Knicks fan and become a Trailblazer fan. But I think that's what it's all about. That's why I'm enjoying this year so much, because I went in with proper expectation. And so now I'm enjoying watching and getting a chance to see these guys develop. It's cool. Chris Burkhart, my man, is here. What's up, brother? Yes.
I am here.
I'm looking forward to the game tonight. I like watching these guys compete. I'm still in my corny Trailblazer mode right now. I like the way they're competing, even on nights when they don't shoot the ball well, which is going to be on a recurring theme this year. They don't have a lot of guys that can shoot. What can you do?
Hey, I think you said it best a second ago. You said expectation. Expectation matters. As long as you understood what this season was going to be from the jump, this should be a really enjoyable season. I think it has been so far, understanding this team was not going to be great, but they're going to be fun.
Yeah, they are. They're fun to watch and compete, and we'll see what they can continue to do. But I like the way they're getting after it defensively, and, a lot of things to look forward to. And I think the Trailblazers right now, I really like some of these youngsters. Skylar Mays, he's good. And he's playing the way that Coach Billups wants him to play and running the offense. He's cut down on the turnovers the last couple of games. He just recently had his 2-way deal converted into a full NBA contract. He's got a good touch. Yeah, I like the pace that he plays with. You can tell that he knows what he's doing. He's a very competent NBA player. And that's a compliment I can give him. He belongs in the NBA. And it's nice to have guys like that you can call upon when you have injuries who can come in and be productive. I think Tamani Kamara's been, really good defensively for them. He'll become even more deadly if he can develop his three-point shot. And they're getting good energy from Jabari Walker. I think the two most consistent guys that we know what we're going to get night to night, Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton, the two veterans. But, another opportunity night for Shaden to continue to develop. And then they'll eventually get these guys back. Scoot's not going to be out long. Anthony will be back soon. And then we'll be able to see these guys continue to develop as they get more time together, which is nice. So that's where we're at. We got a game coming up tonight, second of a back-to-back. It's a busy week for the Trailblazers who play tonight. They'll be back at it on Friday. They also have a game on Sunday. So 4 games this week for the Blazers as they continue to grind through the early part of their schedule. We'll keep things rolling here on Game Day. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. You can also go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. We're streaming all of our live shows, so you can jump on and join the stream and take part in our YouTube chat. Tip-off with the Blazers and Cavs coming up at 7 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Now, back to Blazers Game Day, brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light, made to chill.
All right, it's Game Day, Chad doing Chris Burkhart with you. Let's take a listen to Coach Billups following last night's loss to the Jazz and get his thoughts coming out of that game where the Blazers outscored big time in the second half, only 13 points in the fourth quarter on 15 of 45 shooting from the field in that second half. Here's Coach Billups.
I thought their physicality, guarding on the ball was really good, and it hurt us. I mean, 11 steals they get. So I thought they won all the hustle stats all day. And, you know, for us, that's just kind of what we do. That's the only way we can compete. You know, being so hurt up, we got to be able to win this hustle game. And we didn't win it tonight. And they did. You got to give them a lot of credit. They did it. I mean, shoot, they get 16 offensive rebounds. That's what they do. And we knew that, and we tried to prepare for it. And, shoot, they get 7 in the first quarter. So that was tough. But they did what they had to do. You got to give them credit. We just didn't play well enough.
What did you make of that fourth quarter? You guys seemingly couldn't buy a basket.
Yeah, we were stuck on 93 for I don't know how long. But, you know, I thought we created some decent shots. Not great, but decent. But just couldn't make. We seem to have those type of stretches, unfortunately. But, again, you know, it's a lot of times difficult when you don't, you know, we missing so many guys that create so much action for us. It's just tough.
What do you think of DeAndre's?
Yeah, DA was great, man. He was great. He was aggressive all night. We made a concerted effort to try to get him the ball, and he really did. He was aggressive. He did a really good job. I thought he was good on both ends of the floor.
Did you get out of Tamani what you hoped to?
Yeah, I thought two was good. Two is going to be who he's going to be no matter if he's starting or not. He's going to be the same guy. You know, he's going to scrap, he's going to claw, he's going to rebound, he's going to protect the rim a little. Yeah, he's going to always be who he is.
Coach Billups, short on thoughts after the loss to the Jazz. The Blazers back at it tonight, second of a back-to-back. This time they'll take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Moda Center tip-off is coming up at 7 o'clock. So, you know, those were some of the issues he talked about. But again, you know, for the Blazers, you know, if they're going to have a chance to win a game like that with the offensive woes that they have right now, they got to be able to go out and rebound well. They didn't do a good job. The Jazz able to pull down 16 offensive rebounds. That turned out to be a critical factor in the game. They held a 20-12 edge in second chance points. With the turnovers they forced, 17 of them, which led to 23 points. Some of those easy buckets in transition as they held a 20-9 edge in fast break points. And that turned out to be the key. So the Blazers, you know, they got to tighten it up with the ball security. Part of the issue is they got a lot of young guys playing, and, you know, they're still learning the game and how to protect the ball and do all the things that coach wants. So that's to be expected. And, you know, the rebounding is just one of those things where, you know, it's always a team effort, right? It requires all five guys working together to be able to get to as many balls as you can and limit some of the offensive rebounding. The Jazz, obviously a pretty good offensive rebounding team. They took advantage of that. But the offense, you know, some of those shots, you know, Billups talked about it. He thought they were good looks, not great looks. You know, a lot of those shots were very makeable. They just couldn't get him to go down. But that's the problem when you have a bunch of guys on the floor who aren't known for shooting or are not great shooters. That's just an issue. And that's going to continue to be the case when you have your best players on the sideline. No Ant, no Brogdon, and, of course, Scoot is still out with the bone bruise. So as they get guys back, but especially Ant, you know, just having him on the floor, the defense will respond to him, and that's going to open up better opportunities for other guys. So missing Ant right now is in terms of what their need is on offense, it's a big deal.
And I don't know if you saw this, but I did see a picture on social from Heiken that Simons was out on the court today practicing his dribbling with the brace off of his hand. Still has the thumb wrapped and all, but a good sign towards the progression of that rehab from the injury.
That's good news because they need him.
Big time.
That you think you understand how important someone is, and then you see him without the guy, and you're like, wow, they really need him.
I mean,
he's a shot maker.
I was going to say, when you lose Damian Lillard in the offseason and all the other pieces, I mean, he's hands down their best shooter. So, and probably their best scorer. So, yeah, you need him big time.
I mean, who's the best shooter they've got right now who's playing? Jeremy Grant?
I would say Jeremy.
Yeah, and the problem is the defense knows that, so he's going to draw more attention. And they're going to leave certain guys open and make them prove that they can make shots. The problem is these other guys can't make shots. I was impressed last night, though. Jabari Walker, we know he plays with energy, but how about him knocking down 2 of his 3 shots from downtown, 5 of 7 from the floor? Like, if he can continue to develop his shooting touch to where he can make a decent percentage from downtown, that's going to make him an even more effective player because I like what he brings to the floor. He's cool.
I think that's probably, at this point, I would say that might be the one thing keeping him from getting more consistent minutes is the offensive side of the ball. I think defensively he's solid. I mean, plenty to learn there on that side, but as I argue all the time, if you have it on that end, it's easy to get better, and he has it on that end. Now he just needs to work on getting that shot to fall as well.
So what would you do with Shaedon tonight? He's got the sore knee. He's going to play. Don't you think it might be wise to dial back his minute totals just a touch to where he's not playing over 40 minutes?
Sore knee, second of a back-to-back. I would definitely try to dial that back a little bit. Can't sit him. Actually, they can sit him. He hasn't got an all-star game or the all-NBA bids that put restrictions on who you can sit. So, but you do need to play him. You need bodies. But I would definitely try to not play him 40.
Yeah. When I saw that was the case where he had the sore knee, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. The guy's playing his tail off. That's a lot of minutes to go from, basically high school to the NBA to now where he's playing 40 minutes a night. That's a load.
Yeah, and he's not playing 40 minutes a night in garbage time like last year. He's playing 40 minutes a night against starting units, so he's getting tested.
Yeah, I like the way he's responding. You know what's cool? He didn't shoot the ball well at all last night, 4-16, but I like seeing the stat sheet where he's getting the assists, he's getting the rebounds. Like he's being an impact player. He's showing that he's a much more versatile guy than I thought when they got him. He can do a little bit of everything. He's not a bad decision maker in terms of setting up his teammates. He's got potential in that department.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the potential there, and I actually think he's been aggressive on the defensive end in a positive way. Like, I think he's better on that end than advertised, moves well laterally. I think he can become a good defender as well. So they may have struck gold there.
What do you think about the idea of maybe getting Ayton even more involved offensively for the time being, to where you can look to maybe get him a few more shots where he can maybe get some face-ups or some opportunities down low to where you can help get some easier buckets? Is that a good idea?
It's a tough idea because, like I told you the other night, it's tough to get him involved when you're playing with Skylar Mays, right, and Jeremy Bouye and all these other guys who aren't regular point guards or rotation guys. Even like Skylar Mays has been great, right? But he's not in the rotation if you got a healthy Ant and a healthy Malcolm Brogdon. So you got to understand kind of what Ayton's playing with. But at the same time, Chad, I agree with you. I think this might be a good time understanding what's going on. Maybe get him into the sets that you maybe don't use him as much as. And I know they like to use him in the pick and roll. I'd like to see them just really hammer the ball down. Let him put his back to a guy and just see, just use that body, use that strength and develop those things down low. Because it would be great if we had in DeAndre Ayton, if you had his athleticism and everything he brings overall mixed with, and Blazer fans will remember just that feathery soft touch that Enes Kanter had when he was here, right? Enes Kanter couldn't play a lick of defense, or Enes Freedom, right? Couldn't play a lick of defense, right? But man, when he was down by the rim, soft touch made buckets. I would love to let DeAndre develop that game a little more.
Yeah, Enes Kanter, for his time in a Portland Trailblazers uniform, was very effective. He finished out that year strong.
Very effective. I mean, they don't make that run without him.
I thought they were done when Nurk went down with that injury against Brooklyn. And then Kanter came in and solidified that unit and did a heck of a job.
Well, he was the perfect backup center because once Nurk went down, offensively, he didn't miss a beat because he was a pick-and-roll center as well. Didn't pass the ball as well as Nurk, but could still set up the pick-and-roll offense that Dame loved to run.
He was big. He was a big part of that run they had to the Western Conference Finals. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on Game Day. We'll come back and take a look at the NBA scoreboard and let you know what's going on around the association tonight. And tip-off is coming up at 7 o'clock. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show at 6. It's Game Day here on 620 Rip City Radio.
It's time for a Blazers Game Day scoreboard report, powered by Columbia Heating and Cooling, raising your expectations of comfort.
All right, let's get you up to date around the association's second quarter in Washington. Mavericks lead the Wizards 52-35. Doncic so far with 17 points. First quarter in Atlanta. Knicks over the Hawks 32-20. Julius Randle 13 points. First quarter in Philadelphia. Celtics on top of the 76ers 25-18. That game's on ESPN. Jason Tatum 7 points early for the Celtics. First quarter in Toronto. Raptors lead the Bucks lead the Raptors 25-14. Dame 10 points early for the Bucks. Games coming up later on tonight in Chicago. The Magic and Bulls. Chicago favored by 2.5. Paolo Banchero is averaging 18.6 boards a game for the Magic. Nikola Vucevic 17 points, 10 rebounds for the Bulls. In Phoenix, the Suns and Timberwolves. Phoenix favored by 5.5. Devin Booker averaging 31 points a game. Anthony Edwards, 27, 6, and 5 for the T-Wolves in Los Angeles. Second of the ESPN doubleheader. Kings at the Lakers. Sacramento favored by 1.5 points. De'Aaron Fox, 30 points per game. Anthony Davis, 23 points, 11 boards, and nearly 4 assists. And at 7 o'clock from Moda Center, the Cavs and Trailblazers. Cleveland favored by 10.5. Donovan Mitchell averaging 28 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. And Jeremy Grant right now, 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. And that is your scoreboard report. The one big note out of the NFL is that Deshaun Watson, the Browns quarterback, is going to be out for the rest of the year. He's going to have surgery on his throwing shoulder. So this weekend, Browns and Steelers, it'll be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the rookie out of UCLA, who will get the start. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. It's good news for Denver because they play the Browns a week from Sunday. So I'm not too unhappy about that. Wacky world of sports. Blazers and Cavs are coming up at 7 o'clock. Chauncey Billups, I want you to hear this once again in regards to DeAndre Ayton. We're hoping to see a little bit more from him. Here is Billups on Ayton's performance against the Jazz last night, where he had a double-double, 22 points, 10 boards.
He was aggressive all night. We made a concerted effort to try to get him the ball, and he really did. He was aggressive. He did a really good job. I thought he was good on both ends of the floor.
Yes, and in regards to the overall product in terms of what you saw, poor offense, especially in the fourth quarter, only 13 points, went over 5 minutes without a field goal, and Billups shared his thoughts on some of the problems, the offensive rebounds, some of the mistakes. Here's what he had to say.
We just didn't play good enough. We didn't play good enough. I thought their physicality, guarding on the ball was really good, and it hurt us. It hurt us. 11 steals they get. So I thought they won all the hustle stats all day, and for us, that's just kind of what we do. That's the only way we can compete. Being so hurt up, we got to be able to win this hustle game, and we didn't win it tonight. And they did. You got to give them a lot of credit. They did it. Shoot, they get 16 offensive rebounds. That's what they do. And we knew that, and we tried to prepare for it. And shoot, they get 7 in the first quarter. So that was tough. But they did what they had to do. You got to give them credit. We just didn't play well enough.
All right, there you go. Just remember that as the season plays out when you're watching the Trailblazers, they cannot allow a team to annihilate them in the hustle points. That can't happen. Not if they're going to be in a position to, compete to win games. They just don't have the offense right now to be able to do that. They've got to be able to overcome, and they got to do that through defense, through hustle, through rebounding, all the little things. They got to find ways to manufacture points. Manufacture points. I can tell you one thing. You go 1 for 11 from 3 in the fourth quarter, that's going to be a tough way to win games. You can't go 5 minutes without a field goal. But teams that do and still find ways to win, they do it by manufacturing points, by being resourceful. That's kind of the key. So a lot of work left for the Blazers, and that's okay. Yeah, this is part of the process. It's okay for them to have to work through this. Young guys, new guys, guys who lack a lot of experience, and they're going to go through this. So I'm okay with that. So yeah, I guess what surprises me the most, I just can't get over the defensive improvement. Doesn't that impress you? Are you not experiencing what I am in terms of the defensive improvement? I didn't even think it was possible this early in the season. Like, seriously. I had no idea that they could do this. And I had a lot of doubts about Chauncey Billups going into the year. But my whole point with Chauncey, Chris and I were talking about this last night. Look, I understand why there are many of you who have concerns about Coach Billups. But I'll say this. If you're going to crack someone or blast somebody for lack of performance, then you have to make sure that you're consistent. So when you see good things or you see production, you've got to give props when they're due. And for the Blazers to go from being the worst defensive team to now top 10 early in the season, and again, it's early. It could change. But to get them to play this well defensively with so many guys in and out of the lineup, that's impressive. I didn't expect that. And obviously they got better more capable defenders on the roster to a degree this year. But just because you have that doesn't mean they're going to show up and know how to play defense. You got to get them in the right spot. You got to get them communicating, and they have to be able to work in that direction. They're doing it. They're responding. Does it mean that they're perfect yet? No. Do they still have a lot of work to overcome? Yes. But that's part of a rebuild. Rebuilds do not happen overnight. This is a rebuild. So this is something that's going to take time. That's why we have to pay attention to the incremental growth and be able to watch that as the season plays out. And we'll continue to get a better feel for what Billups is capable of, what some of these youngsters are capable of. That's the biggest frustration right now with, the injury to Scoot. I want him on the floor. I want him getting minutes. I want him to get experience. I want to see what he's capable of. I want him to be able to gain more confidence after a rough start to the season. And, the injuries and a guy being out of the lineup only, just slows that process. So, we'll see how things continue to shake out. But I like that. In regards to the NBA, a couple of things I'm following. I continue to be impressed by the Denver Nuggets. I didn't want to believe that they were the best team in the NBA, but they're the best team in the NBA coming off the championship. 9-2 out of the gate. They are not deep, so they lack some, key pieces on the bench. But if their starting five remains healthy, they're going to be a serious problem. So I love what I see from the Denver Nuggets. Right now, Philadelphia, their early play at 8-2 is impressive. Got to give credit to their coach, Nick Nurse. He knows what he's doing. That's a darn good basketball coach, and he's a good defensive mind. And he has those guys playing good basketball. It's very impressive. Very impressive. Celtics, they are what we thought they were. 8-2, they're a legit title contender. The big surprise in the East has been the slow start to the season for the Bucks, who are in Toronto tonight. They're only 6-4, but I think mostly is coaching. They've got a brand new coach who doesn't know what's going on yet, and we're going to find out whether he knows what he's doing or not. Adrian Griffin. He already ran Stotts out of town before the season began. The question is, does he know what he's doing? We talked to Ben Golliver last week, and he junked his defensive game plan a few games into the season because it wasn't suited for the roster and the players that he had. That's a disaster. So the Sixers start's impressive. I credit Nurse. The Celtics are a legit title contender. I think Milwaukee will get better as the season goes along and Griffin starts to have a better understanding of what's going on. In the Western Conference, I think Denver by far is the best. Impressed with the start for Minnesota and Dallas. Houston's been impressive at 6-3. Clearly, that's all about coaching with Ime Udoka. So if he can control his urges and stay focused on being the coach of the Rockets, he should be fine because we know that guy can coach, and the Rockets are playing good basketball right now. Oklahoma City's impressive. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of my favorite players in the league. They're 7-4. And Sacramento, a little bit of a slow start, but I like their roster, their makeup, and I love De'Aaron Fox. The Lakers and the Warriors, the Pelicans, the Suns. I think the Suns are overrated. I do not consider them a legit title contender. I think the Warriors are going to be just fine as they continue to figure things out. And for the Lakers, it's just a matter of health. Can Davis and LeBron stay healthy or at least be healthy and ready to roll come postseason time? If the answer is yes to that, then they're going to be able to make a run and we'll factor in. If they can't, then they're done. I guess what I'm trying to say is that no matter which team you look at in the Western Conference, they all have significant flaws compared to the Denver Nuggets. That's it. I think right now, based on what I've seen, and this is early, but I think the Warriors would provide the toughest or stiffest test for the Nuggets right now in the West. And in the Eastern Conference, maybe it's a 3-team race and not a 2-team race. We knew it was the Celtics and Bucks who would be factors, but maybe Philadelphia is going to be right there. Because, Nick Nurse is a darn good basketball coach, and he knows what he's doing.
And he deserves a ton of credit, like you said, because I think everyone gave up on them with all the offseason drama surrounding them and Harden and, where are they going to go from here? And remember, Dame was the trade target and, all this. There was a lot of question marks around that team, and they were playing real good basketball.
Yeah. And maybe for the players, a fresh breath of air to get Nick Nurse in there. I would imagine Doc Rivers might grind on you after a while. With the voice and the yelling and stuff like that, that would get tired. He would wear on me. And I truly believe this. Even if you have a guy who's a talent, getting a head case that's causing issues off the team to where now the players who are remaining, they can just focus on ball and doing what they do, that's a major advantage for Philly. They don't have to worry about Harden anymore. Nothing worse than having a guy on your team that doesn't want to be there and is going to continue to be a problem.
Harden's wild, man. Harden just played a year with the MVP of the league and was still upset about it.
So, dude, I heard that interview with Doc Rivers. So, what I think happened, according to Doc, and this is wild, but it kind of fits the MO of Harden. So, the first half of the year last year, he took on the role of facilitator and point guard, and he was leading the NBA in assists, and he was playing great. But he got snubbed and did not make the All-Star team when he arguably had played one of his best halves of a season. And I think that broke him because Doc said that Harden called him and was like, yeah, I need to go back to the way I used to play. So he made a choice because he didn't get the nod for the All-Star game to go back to getting touches and looking to be a scorer. He was bitter. So he was willing. He cared more about the way he wanted to play instead of playing the way that was best for his team.
And so that selfish player is the one that the Clippers wanted to give up assets for. That's wild to me.
Yeah, so now you can have Russ, Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George.
And did you hear like Ty Lue's interview the other day talking about how like, yeah, we're going to try to stagger him as much as possible and this and that. Like, so you went and traded for a guy knowing full well that he doesn't fit into your starting line. Like, what are you doing? That's just basketball malpractice.
It's basketball malpractice. That was a bad decision because it's not going to work. And not only that, but it's going to create confusion. Who's going to take the shots in the fourth quarter? It should be Kawhi. But those other guys don't think they shouldn't be taking the shots. You got too many cooks in the kitchen. Paul George is probably the most unselfish of that group. Probably. That's okay. I don't like the Clippers. I think their owner's crazy. That's not going to work well for them. They're done. The Kawhi-Paul George experiment failed.
Everything in the NBA is weird right now. That failed. They went and got Harden. What is it? The Suns are just now playing their very first game with Beal, Booker, and Durant together. It's just like 10, 11 games in. Like, I don't even know what to think anymore.
I guess we just know one thing. Denver's really good. And they got Jokic. And they got a good coach. And that team plays together and they defend.
They got a real good coach. And I've liked him since his time in Sacramento. They messed up big time. I mean,
they weren't patient.
I got the receipts on that one. That was a dumb fire because he had them playing real good basketball.
Yep.
Then he goes to Denver, turns them around, wins their first championship. And he's got some real good players too, man. Look at what he's getting out of Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon's become an absolute stud for them. And he was a stud in Orlando too, but in a different system and used in a different way. Like now he's a true role player and it just suits him so well. And he changes games, which is frustrating knowing that Portland was rumored for him at multiple junctures as well. And then I also think a player that I really like, but I think Jamal Murray might be one of the more underrated players in this league. He's a top tier point guard and you can't convince me otherwise.
Aaron Gordon was so clutch for them down the stretch last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Smart, tough, good defender. Yeah, and he protects Jokic a little bit. He's good. He's real good. And I like Jamal. I like Jamal Murray a lot. Big-time shot maker. There are nights where he can take over a game in a fourth quarter and take some pressure off of Jokic. He's that good. He's just one of those guys, like Dan, when he gets hot, look the heck out. Because he doesn't back away from a shot. There's no fear in that dude. He money. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on Game Day. If you want to jump on board, you can do so, 503-248-0620. Join us on YouTube. Go there right now, youtube.com. Pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and join in on the live stream and take part in the chat. You are welcome to do so.
The best performing team requires the best workstations. What's the Scoot is brought to you by Office Furniture Reborn. Need desks, better office chairs, or just the right file cabinet? Office Furniture Reborn has a huge selection of colors and sizes.
It's going to be more than 5 games, Burkhardt.
I don't know. I think 5's fair, but I almost thought it was going to be a little bit more just because the last time he had an altercation and got suspended, I mean, the reputation precedes him, and that's why they suspended him was based off that. I mean, the thing is, you saw this one coming. The game before that, he was jarring back and forth with the Timberwolves there, and that's just how he likes to roll. Now, there was an article. I didn't get a chance to read it because it was for paid subscribers. I'm going to get on that, but Rudy Gobert mentioned that he wasn't surprised that he got ejected because anytime Steph isn't playing, Draymond doesn't like playing without his boy, so he gets ejected. And Habistro has an article where he says that Gobert might be onto something because he broke down the numbers, and I find that to be hilarious.
Dude, that's funny. He's like, Steph's not in, I'm out.
Steph's out. I'm about to get up out of here.
I could see that. Like, you get so used to being on the floor with, like, the greatest, you're like, I don't want this crap.
Yeah. He's like, if Steph ain't out here and Clay's starting the season pretty slow, everyone's going to really pay attention to my terrible shot.
He's just crazy enough to do that, too. I wonder if the NBA only gave 5 games because it's Gobert, and they figure, well, the guy's a douche. Who cares if Draymond decides to put him in a chokehold? What started it? Do we know?
Well, the actual altercation was Clay and what's his face? I missed who it was.
So Draymond just jumped in.
He just jumped in because he said, he saw an opportunity to fight, and he's like, oh yeah, let's go. His fight or fight mechanism, not fight or flight, fight or fight mechanism kicked in, and he came in.
That's good.
I mean, this is the guy who punched his own teammate in the face, guys. Come on.
Yeah, you think he cares about Rudy Gobert?
Some of you may forget, but he punched Jordan Poole in the face.
With intent. And apparently Poole deserved it because no one really went to his defense. And then he got shipped out the year after.
Maybe Steph was like, I value my face, so I'm just going to stay on Dre's good side.
I also love this Kelly Oubre story, too, where he fractures his wrist, claims he was hit by a car, but yet the police can discover no video at the intersection of any type of altercation taking place. So now I immediately think, okay, what stupid thing was he doing to break his wrist that he doesn't want the team to know about? You can't lie about anything nowadays because everything's under surveillance. So this is the intersection. Yes, 100%. Well, we didn't find anything. Did you make this story up, bro? Because athletes have been known to do dumb things that they're not supposed to be doing and hurt themselves, and then they have to make up some really bizarre story about how the injury took place so the team doesn't get mad at them. That stuff happens all the time.
I mean, like, if you wanted to or were able to break down the numbers to see how many times a day you were on CCTV, you'd probably be disturbed at how many times Random Joe is on camera.
No, it's scary. I would love to see a major league contract for a basketball or football player or whoever. I want to see the long list of things they're not allowed to do, right?
Yeah, we hear about them now and then. We don't always hear that full list, though. But, like they're not allowed to ride motor vehicles or something like that.
Or go skiing or do things where you're putting your body at risk. I remember when I was a kid living in Denver, Elway did a commercial for something, but he was in a limousine that was on top of Keystone Mountain. And he was joking about going skiing, but he was in a limo because you can't go skiing, right? I would just like to know what that long list is of things you cannot do as an athlete, or they could void out your contract.
All just because of things in this studio. Somewhere along the line, the player looks at their manager is like, can you just give me a list of things that I can do?
Such a Shacker thing. Our producer, Michael Shacker, resists authority every day of his life, and we respect it. I love that, though. I told Dwight today that you hung up on him because of insubordination.
I was here listening. I was cracking up.
I saw Shacker's face, too. He was laughing. He knows it's true. He doesn't deny it. He's like, yeah, whatever. That's so good. Draymond does not care about authority. He resists it constantly.
Yeah.
But that's what I love. Like Steve Kerr, when he has to be, is tough with him. Like they've gotten in yelling matches before. Because even Steve Kerr, as great as Draymond is, Steve Kerr holds him accountable. It's like, look, you're going to play it the way I want you to play it, or I'm going to pull your ass out of the game. That's good. Some guys you're going to butt heads with, but Kerr understands he needs Draymond to be Draymond. But at times, Kerr's like, look, you need to do it this way.
Yeah. And the thing is, he gets away with it because I think he was the core piece of those championships. Yeah, Curry was a great shooter. Clay was great too. But I think Draymond was the main cog that really made the engine flow for what he did on both sides of the floor defensively, and then running the offenses at that point forward position. He was great. His prime run was money. And he's kind of the classic player, Chad, that everybody hates him, right? And everybody wants to get on the pedestal and talk about how bad this fight was and he should have never done it, this and that. But he's the classic type of guy that if he's wearing your uniform, you probably love him. You're like, yeah, I love that fight. I love that passion and that emotion, right? Like Rasheed Wallace. I didn't care that guy got a million technicals. I loved Rasheed Wallace. Guarantee you every other fan base hated him.
I'm looking here. The statement from Joe Dumars after Green was suspended for stepping on Sabonis in the playoffs. Dumars said, quote, here's what it came down to. Excessive and over-the-top actions, conduct detrimental, and a repeat offender. That's what separates this where you end up with a suspension. So, see, Draymond, from now until the time he's done playing basketball, Burkhardt, he will never get the benefit of the doubt in an altercation because of his priors. He's a repeat offender.
Yeah, you know how in real life someone can get 25 to life, maybe get out early for some good behavior. Like, I want Draymond to get suspended for officially 5 to 15 games, depending on behavior over the next 4 days. And if he doesn't act well, behind the scenes, yeah, you're gonna have to. It's a 7-dayer at least now. Just come on now.
That's crazy. I love that report. The Sixers say Kelly Oubre Jr. suffered a fractured rib yesterday when he was struck by a motor vehicle, and that he'll be reevaluated 1 week from now. Struck by a motor vehicle, and the cops cannot find any video evidence.
Yeah, if you were outside where we've got to the point where not only are you on the CCTVs all the time, dude, pretty much every single house has one as a doorbell now. So, I mean, yeah, that's no evidence anywhere. Yeah.
Yep. Very suspicious.
This is classic. I was skateboarding, which is in my contract. I'm not supposed to do nothing in my contract about not getting hit by a car. So that's the story we're going with.
The latest report here says police have stated that the surveillance footage reviewed to date from the reported hit and run involving Kelly Oubre Jr. does not show any indication of an accident happening at the city center junction where Oubre said he was struck on Saturday night. Quote, a source familiar with the situation said that Oubre may not have provided an accurate account of where the crash allegedly occurred. Huh. That would appear that might be the case.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's good.
Why?
The rub here is that Nancy Kerrigan hit herself.
Now, in his defense, if you get hit by a car, you might be a little confused on the intersection. Maybe. I doubt that, but I'm just saying that that's possible. I don't know. I've never been hit by a car and had a rib injury, so I don't know.
I would think if you got hit by a vehicle, the exact intersection you were at would be the last thing that you remembered or cared about.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on a game day. Before the end of the show, we'll give you our keys to the game. Blazers and Cavaliers coming up at 7 o'clock. Tip-off from Moda. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show coming up at 6 here on 620 Rip City Radio.
Hey, it's Travis Demers for my friends at First Call Heating and Cooling. We're in the thick of fall, approaching winter, and man, did the weather get cold in a hurry. I don't want to run into the same issues I did last year when my system failed, so I've already got an appointment on the books to get my furnace tuned up, and really, it is a game changer. So whether you're gearing up for winter and you need to tune up like me, or you need a new high-efficient system that will save you money, make an appointment for a free estimate at firstcallheat.com. It's that easy. Firstcallheat.com. CCB 238967.
All right, I got 3 facts for you tonight. Number 1, the Blazers' offense is an issue. Dead last in the league in offensive efficiency, next to last in three-point shooting percentage. This is going to be a recurring theme for quite some time for this squad. They can't make shots. They need Anthony Simons desperately, and that's why it leads to our next 2 things. Get DeAndre Ayton more involved. He's been very effective over the last couple of weeks. 22 points, 10 boards last night on 10 of 17 shooting. He's a very competent offensive player. He can hit the face-up jumper. He can work down on the block. I wouldn't hesitate to get him a few more shots and try to find a way to get this squad some easier buckets to put themselves in a position to compete. And when you get inside and get an easier look for Ayton, you can lessen those runs where you go 5 minutes without a field goal if you get too happy with shooting the three-point shot. And also with the hustle points, the Blazers cannot afford to get beat on the hustle board in any game if they hope to have a chance to win. With the offensive issues that they have and the lack of ball security, they've got to hustle. They've got to rebound well. They need to protect and be able to limit teams on the offensive glass. They can't get killed in second chance points. And with their hustle and their defense, they got to limit some of the transition opportunities for other teams. So you got to continue to clean it up. Better ball security, better effort rebounding wise, and then continue to win the hustle points. That's how this team's going to win. They're not going to be a great offensive team this year. That's okay. Go out there, work hard, continue to defend like we've seen so far, and don't let a team outwork you. And if they can do that, then they'll be in a position to make things happen. You know, Burkhardt, it's pretty funny. We were just talking about the Suns, and, you know, we were hoping that we'd get a chance to see what they'd look like with Bradley Beal on the floor and this whole new look squad with Beal, Kevin Durant, and the rest of their squad. It's being delayed once again. Beal's been ruled out for the game tonight.
Darn it.
I know.
Like, what is going on?
Like, I don't think that's going to work really well, but I want to see if it's going to work or not. I want to know.
Absolutely. I'm sure Suns fans want to know as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. And I know no one talks about him, but you know a player I really like, a couple of guys that I like on Philadelphia, Burkhardt. I like watching them play, and I like the way they operate. I'm a huge fan of Tyrese Maxey. I think he's a terrific player. I like his hustle. I like his energy and the way he balls. And I also like Tobias Harris. Those guys don't get a lot of attention, but I like those two guys. But Maxey's awesome. And he's just go, go, go. I like the energy he plays with. He's an underrated player.
Yeah, and dropped a 50-piece just the other day. So he can score. He can play defense. I'm with you on Tobias Harris. He gets a lot of hate just because he has such a big contract. And I don't know if he's lived up to that contract, but just as a player, he's pretty darn solid. So yeah, they got some good dudes over there.
Dude, the contracts are so fat in the NBA right now, it's hard for anyone to live up to it.
Yeah, true.
Huge money. Huge. Yeah. So
What was the contract that John said the other day when you had him on? Warren Moon made him the highest paid player. It was like a 4-year, $5 million deal or something like that.
Yeah. So I think with Warren Moon, he played his college ball at Washington, as you know, went to the CFL, won multiple Grey Cups. And then when he came into the NFL, he's a free agent. And so I think there's kind of a bidding war. But the two teams with the most interest were Seattle and Houston. And everyone assumed he was going to go to play with the Seahawks because he had a home in Seattle. He had played his ball at UW. Houston gave him a 5-year, $5 million deal. And at the time, that was considered just mind-blowing money.
Wild how far we've come.
5 years, $5 million. You got to be kidding me, man. No quarterback's worth that much. Those are peanuts now. When you got guys making $40+ million a year playing quarterback.
Yeah. Too bad minimum wage did inflate the same way sport wages did.
It's got to kill some of these vets. A guy like Marino, Elway, or Montana, they look at the money these guys are making now, like, gosh, what could I have made?
That's where you look at Jordan. It was a way into his career before he got a fat contract, but he was smart enough to get the brand going, man. He was making just so much money through endorsements. It was filthy.
He's like one of the greatest endorsing athletes. He was on everything back then. Ever-ready batteries, Gatorade, McDonald's. You name it, he was doing some type of endorsement deal. I think it wasn't until the end when he was signing those one-year deals, he was getting like $30 million a year.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's a gross underpayment for MJ. The Bulls are getting over for years with those guys. They underpaid Scotty. MJ was making peanuts. It's a different game now. What would MJ be worth in today's NBA? You wouldn't be able to pay him enough. He'd get the max deal, super max, and that he'd be maxed out.
If MJ were here right now in his prime, oh yeah, he would be super maxed out. Super maxed out. Granted, they have caps on that, but he would probably be smart enough to go like 1 year, and then work something out crazy, become like the first player to make $100 million in a season or something. Like, it'd be wild. He'd be worth every penny. Like, you could offer him the fattest deal you could under the CBA, and it would still be of value.
I would like to know what the total dollar amount is that he's made off the Jordan brand. Just think about how big that's been for Nike, the Jordan brand, which is still strong and vibrant today. It's pretty cool that you can play that long and be out of the league that long, and people still want to wear your gear.
Oh, dude, my buddy texted me just the other day, said he was going to the employee store. Hey, need me to get anything? I was like, yeah, dude, give me a pair of J's. Like, dude, like I don't have a pair of J's. I want a pair. I need a pair. Get me a pair. Like, people, like the kids nowadays, they probably couldn't pick Michael Jordan out of a lineup, but they sure do love his shoes.
Oh yeah, it's money. All right, we'll see what happens.
Speaking of money, over his career, according to Spotrac, Michael Jordan made $93 million in his NBA career.
Over his full career.
Damian Lillard has a year on this new contract where he's going to make $60 million in one season. In one season, Damian Lillard is going to make, 2/3 of what Michael Jordan made in his entire career.
What did Kobe make? Is it over $300 million? I think Kobe's over $300 million. I think.
Let's see.
That's wild.
Isn't it?
That's big money.
I'm looking here.
No, it's okay. You keep looking. I think that's what it is. I think he made over $300 million. I know Kevin Durant made a killing too.
Yeah, Kobe, $328 million, roughly.
That's big money. That's some big, big money. Props to him. So far, LeBron, you want to take a rough guess at LeBron's career earnings just from basketball alone?
Just from basketball alone, 500.
That's a pretty good guess. $434 million just from basketball alone for Bron.
That's impressive.
His rookie deal when he came in the league, $4 million in year one, 4.3 year two, 4.6, 5.8, before it jumped up to 13. And the last couple of years, 41 and 44.
Perspective: Michael Jordan didn't make $4 million in a season until his 9th year in the league.
Gosh, what's amazing is when you look up some of the bums who have played in the league and how much money they made. There's a lot of guys like that. Let's see here. I know. Kevin Garnett, I think is his name. Kevin Garnett. I think Kevin Garnett's over the $300 million mark too.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Like, you're right. It was the last 2 years in Chicago. He made $30 million each year, MJ. Other than that, the highest he made was $4 million. And just a couple seasons ago, the Blazers were paying Myers Leonard $10 per year. Like, Myers Leonard was making more than MJ made on most of his contracts.
Kevin Garnett, $343 million career earnings. Man, that's some big money. Dude.
Big money.
And Dame's gonna, before it's all said and done, Dame's gonna make a killing.
Yeah. And with the game the way it is now too, it's kind of used to just be MJ, right? Now the Kyries, the Kobes, his family's still making money off that deal. And then obviously the Dames are going to keep going on with, once he retires, Adidas is still going to latch onto that because they're making fat money off of it. So crazy to think about.
And I think it was the Lakers. I think Dr. Jerry Buss gave Magic like a 25-year, $25 million contract, which was considered insane back in the day. But that's peanuts for one of the best players of all time, the leader of Showtime. Man, it's just the way the game changes. It's huge now.
It's wild.
Those guys back in the day paving the way for these guys now. It's pretty crazy. And Dame has done well in the endorsement area himself. For being in a small market, became the face of Adidas. We see him on the Modelo commercials. He's doing all sorts of stuff. Props to Dame.
Yeah. That's where it's interesting, like when people get into like the WNBA debate and the money that they make there and how come the NBA makes more. It's like that league is still, in general terms of a sports league, is still in its infancy, right? Even though it's been around for 20 years now, but that's young for a sports league. And so like you look at their money and the fact like MJ in his rookie year was making $500,000, like there's going to be a time, like it's coming. The WNBA women they're gonna get their cash too.
Dame so far, roughly 235,
and he still has more coming.
Yep.
To be an NBA player too, guaranteed money.
$250 million for Dame.
Remember when the Blazers were paying Rafe LaFrentz like $17 million to sit on the bench?
They're still paying Andrew Nicholson. I forgot the two players. Someone reached out the other night.
I think this is the last year of Nicholson.
It is. They're paying Andrew Nicholson more on that stretch provision than they are like a combination. I think it's like Tamani and Jabari combined.
Yeah, I have the numbers right here. So Andrew Nicholson on that stretch right now is getting paid $2.8 this season from the Blazers. Tamani's getting 1.1, Jabari Walker 1.7. So those two combined are getting paid when Andrew Nicholson is getting paid to have never worn a Blazer jersey.
I wouldn't mind the stretch provision. Get paid out X amount of dollars over a long period of time. That's not a bad gig.
Dude, it's like Bobby Bonilla Day, right?
That's one of the greatest little things in sports. He gets $1 million like every 4th of July.
Yeah, what a genius.
Gosh, that's good. It's good money if you can get it. All right, we'll come back and we'll hit you with our keys to the game. Tip-off's coming up at 7 from Moda Center, Blazers and Cavs, and Curtis Long standing by with your Trailblazer pregame show.
It's time for Chad Doing's Keys to the Game, brought to you by Gresham Toyota. At Gresham Toyota, we stand behind our commitment to have the best Toyota pricing in Oregon with our Swickard Price Promise.
All right, the keys tonight against the Cavaliers are simple. Win the rebounding battle. They've got to make sure they don't give up 16 offensive rebounds like we saw last night. They need to cut down on turnovers. It's going to be a challenge for them, but last night, 17 turnovers leading to 23 points for the Jazz. They need to protect the basketball better. And then after that, just continue to work hard defensively. I love what I've seen from this group in terms of their defensive effort, and then make an effort to get DeAndre Ayton a little more involved in the offensive end. Easier buckets, a little closer in, take some of the pressure off. And if they can do those things, they'll have an opportunity to compete and maybe get a victory tonight. And the Cavs right now expected to be, I think they were projected to get around 48 wins this year. They're not playing good basketball right now. They're off to a slow start at 4-6. So it's an opportunity tonight for Portland. If they can, tighten up some aspects of the game, they'll give themselves a chance to get a victory tonight. Anything particular you're looking for tonight, Burkhart?
Yeah, actually, I talked about it at the beginning of the show, how I think Shaedon Sharpe has been better on the defensive side than advertised, showing some progress on that side. I think tonight it's going to be a big-time test for him and Toumani Camara as well, because the Cavs have 3 guards who can score, man. LeVert, Mitchell, Garland, all good. And then LeVert is very good on the defensive end as well. So it's going to be a battle there for Shaedon Sharpe. But I think this is going to be one of those games. Like, who do you put Toumani on? Does he get some is he quick and agile enough to maybe lock up, or at least try to lock up Donovan Mitchell? Because you're going to need to stop those guards to really stand a chance in this one, in my opinion.
It's a great question. And I think right now is the time where you can experiment just to see what Toumani can do, what he's capable of defensively. With his length, his crazy long arms, I think he can give a lot of different positions trouble. He might be able to defend 1 through 4, potentially. I don't know. He's strong for his size. He's a little lanky, but he's strong.
Yeah, he could, which is huge because, again, he can guard multiple positions. And then another guy that you mentioned in Jabari Walker, he can guard probably 3 through 5 quite easily. So it's versatility there. So I think those guys, I didn't mention them in the first go-around there, but I think Walker going to be tested as well.
Yeah, Toumani, he might be one of those quintessential 3-and-D guys. He may develop into one of those players that just, every team likes to have, because you can put him on a variety of different players. I'm anxious to see what he's going to develop into.
Yeah, everyone automatically likes to go to the Pippen just because, he has the number and the armband. You know what would be he could be a thicker version of this because he's more muscular, but what would be perfect for the Blazers is if he were a early prime run Tayshaun Prince. Tayshaun Prince, really good on the defensive side of the ball, then became a pretty good shooter for Detroit as well, did all the little things. And during his prime run, I think every team would have loved to have Tayshaun Prince.
I think that's a much better comp. I just don't like the Scottie Pippen comparison because I hold Scottie in such high regard that I always cringe.
Let's just instantly compare him to a Hall of Famer. No big deal.
Gosh, even when Scottie got to Portland, he was still awesome.
It is fun when you get a guy like Scottie. Even like I said, even when he was in Portland, he wasn't the exact same. But when you watch a guy play who just has a pure basketball mind and can just beat people because he's so darn smart, it's like the Andre Miller effect, right? Like watching Andre Miller was watching a true just master student of the game.
Yeah. I just happened to stumble across it on YouTube. So I watched Game 3 of the 93 finals, Suns and Bulls, that went into triple overtime. And I was watching that game and I was like, that's like prime Scottie. I'm like, wow, you just forget how good certain players were in their prime. He did everything for him.
He was really good. Really good.
Great in transition, great on defense, great passer. He developed a better shot as time went along. He was vital to what they did. And he could defend multiple positions. That guy was big time. Then he went crazy. But he's big time player. Yeah, he was great. He was great. It was cool to see him in a Blazer uniform. That did not suck.
His run in Portland was really good, honestly. All things considered and what he was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was still playing good basketball. He wasn't Chicago Pip, but he was still Pip, man. And I mean, I remember at that point in time, year 2000, I'm 14 years old, man. I loved that team. Loved Scottie Pippen as well, man. His time here was great.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm anxious to see what Toumani Camara can, develop into. They may have found a good backup point guard in Skylar Mays. He's a very competent player. And I just want to see more of DeAndre Ayton. And as I've told you before, I'm a big fan of DeAndre. I like him. I want him to do well. And I like how engaged he is. Very engaged. And you can tell that he's happy to be here and be in a place where he's wanted. sometimes a fresh start for guys, we've seen this time and time again. It can mean the world for them. But Phoenix turned out to be a bad situation for him, and there was a certain stench with that franchise, and of course he was a part of that. But I think they treated him dirty. So now to see him in a position where he's wanted and a coaching staff that's embracing him, you can see it in his attitude and the way he talks. Man, he's excited about it. He's pumped, really pumped. 503-248-0620. We are going to be back after the game tonight for fifth quarter. So you can always make sure you go to YouTube, youtube.com, go to Rip City Radio 620, the homepage, and click and subscribe, and you can take part in our live chat on YouTube. You can check out the stream inside the studio. We're here for you, and we can do that. The Blazers will play again on Friday, and then they're going to play on Sunday. So it's kind of a busy week for the Portland Trail Blazers. I'll give you an idea what they got coming up. But a good challenging week. Like I mentioned before, I want to see how the defense continues to hold up. Cleveland tonight, tough matchup. They host the Lakers on Friday. They host Oklahoma City on Sunday. So 3 good teams. Then Tuesday, they travel to Phoenix and back home Wednesday, second of a back-to-back against Utah. And then they take off on a very difficult road trip at Milwaukee, at Indiana, at Cleveland, at Utah, at the Clippers before they come home for a home game on December 16th against the Dallas Mavericks. So they're entering into a very busy part of their schedule. Tough competition on the slate. So these young Blazers are going to continue to be challenged. Portland lost the first 3 games of the year. They won 3 straight, and they have dropped their last 4 games in a row against Memphis, Sac, the Lakers, and Utah. So we'll see if they can snap it tonight. But again, don't get discouraged by the losses because, again, it's not about the losses. It's about the development of the youngsters. We want to see if the Blazers continue to respond to what Coach Billups and his staff are trying to get them to do. Now, these are all going to be critical things, so pay attention to that. And I'm telling you, if you open your mind to development and what the coach is trying to get them to do and watching the youngsters to see the growth they make game to game, it's going to make the viewing experience much better for you. Especially when you see a team that's shorthanded and young competing on the road at places like Sacramento and L.A. That's good. Utah, they were in a position to win that game last night, too, until they went ice cold in the fourth quarter and gave up that 13-0 run. It's good. You want these guys competing, but the defense has been the big mark. They're number 10 in defensive rating going into the game tonight. We'll see how it continues to hold up against a very diverse squad, unique lineup and roster construction of the Cavs. They got some size. We'll see how Portland does. All right, coming up next, Curtis Long has your Trailblazer pregame show, and then the tip-off at 7. Travis DeMers will be on the call. Chris and I will be back for the fifth quarter after the game right here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Get on up for the downstroke. Oh! Jeremy Grant hits the thruple. Let's get out of here.